Good Friday morning, Market Chameleons, and everyone joining us for the first time. Thanks for coming by and checking out the Market Chameleon pre-market show with this man, Dimitri Pargamonic. How you doing, D?
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Great. You want to start with a disclaimer?
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Before we get started, keep in mind Will and I and Market Chameleon, we're not a registered investment advisor. We're not a broker dealer. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. Wait, Will, I don't think you put up the disclaimer.
Oh, really? It's showing it's sharing. Let me do it again.
Yeah. In any case, if you guys are looking for advice, call your registered investment advisor, call your broker. That's what they're there for, to help you out with that.
Do you see it now?
Yep.
All right, perfect.
Disclaimer. Okay. And I'm going to share my screen. While I'm doing that, if you're joining us for the first time, Will and I, we do these shows in the morning to try to help answer questions you may have about the Market Chameleon tools, the data, the analytics. If you have a question, type it into that live chat on YouTube. Will's watching it. He'll read it back to me. And what we'll do is take a couple minutes to allow you guys to put in those questions, and we'll look at the pre-market report, see if we could get insights, what's going on in the pre-market hours, and then we'll move on to the questions. Okay?
Perfect.
So, pre-market report. These are stocks trading in pre-market hours. Up top, we have this calendar view. One thing you could do is go back in time. And if you click on it, you could see what happened in the pre-market hours, that specific historical date. But by having this, we kind of have a visual what's going on in the last week. So we could just kind of compare the numbers and compare it to the most recent day today, December 15th. And so far, we're still just 9 o'clock, so we got a half hour to go. But so far, we got 544 stocks trading higher in the pre-market hours. We have 461 stocks trading lower. As far as volume goes, we got 186 million shares trading on up volume, 129 million shares trading on down volume. And if we convert the volume to dollar value, we got $2.2 billion worth of stock trading higher versus $2.3 billion worth of stock trading lower. So I guess from this perspective, it's almost a mixed bag. Maybe slightly more positive sentiment in the pre-market hours if we look at the number of stocks. But as far as dollar value goes, it's very, very close. Let's look at it from a couple more perspectives, then we'll move on to the questions. Coming down here, now we have a list of stocks by symbol that are trading in pre-market hours, and we have a list of our most active stocks, our biggest percentage gainers and biggest percentage decliners. And to make this list, these stocks have to meet certain thresholds. As far as liquidity goes, volume, price change, because things in the pre-market are much less liquid. And we see that the stocks that made our list, we have 54 that made our biggest percentage gainers list, and 80 stocks on our biggest percentage decliners list. So that, just from that perspective alone, it's an indicator that some of the trading is with bearish bias, right? That it's leaning towards the bearish side. But if we look closely at this list, we will see that there are small cap stocks in there, ETFs, leverage products, closed-end funds. It could be like a reverse ETF. So, any stock that meets our initial threshold can make this list. And to narrow it down to a smaller group, we could use the filters above. If you have a watch list, you could do it by your watch list. I'm going to use this one as an example, an ETF. Click on it. We get a drop-down menu, different ETFs to select from. I'm going to choose this one, SPY. And when you do that, the list below gets filtered by stocks that are holdings in SPY, which are the S&P 500 constituents. And here we got 7 stocks that made our percentage gainers list, 8 on our decliners list. So from that perspective, looks kind of a mixed bag, neither here or there. So I'd say right now, pretty much neutral in the pre-market trading, and get different signals depending on which perspective you're looking from. So we gave it a couple minutes. I think at this point, if you have questions, I'll take them.
Yeah, we had a question yesterday from Rob, and he's on. He's like, could Dimitri please discuss the option idea dashboard on the new Delta volume trade tab?
Okay. So let me go up here, option block trades. Okay, so you're looking at this one, idea dashboard. Yeah, so the idea dashboard, it's different than the Delta volume screens. These are 2 different reports, completely. So one of them, when we're talking about the Delta volume screener, this scans for large options trades, that have a significant delta to them, on a relative basis. And it looks at it, and sometimes it'll consolidate, if these trades in a sequence, it'll consolidate it, and show the trade. So you can see here volume. Then you got this delta to it, in Bank of America, 165,000 delta, which would be saying that if this trade, right, these 2,499 options, if this trade in the options was to be hedged by stock, hedge the delta, it would require 165,000 shares of stock, right, to hedge it. So that's what this is doing. So this is just pointing out, different trades in the market and displaying them here. So we talked about this, and you have this relative delta volume versus how much stock volume traded in that minute, right? So we're comparing the delta of this one options trade to the total stock volume in that minute in BAC, and you can see that just that one trade, it's more than the total volume in that minute. So it's a pretty significant delta trade. So that's what this is doing. The ID dashboard, it's just a different report altogether. And this scans the option block trades and analyzes the option from the perspective of it, if it's implied volatility versus the historical volatility, right? So in this situation, we saw AAOI, so the June 35 call. We noticed that 75 of them traded for $3.90. And then what we did was say, okay, what implied volatility is that trade, right? So we could calculate the implied vol of that option and of that trade, and we see that that's 103. All right, well, what does that mean? It's 103, but we don't, that's just the number. So we need to compare that to some benchmark, right? So we need to now know, okay, is this a high number or a low number? So how do we do that? So in this scenario, what we did was compare it to this particular stock. We looked at the realized volatility of the stock in the last year. Well, how much, if we looked at a OI, what is the typical volatility of this? Where is it? Is it 20? Is it 50? Is it 200? Because that would, give us a much better perspective. So here we see that in the last year, the stock itself moved at an annualized volatility of 115. Right. So here's the stock. So could definitely move. Here's a chart of this stock. So what this is saying is that, well, on a relative basis, if the volatility going forward resembles anything that the volatility of AOI looked like in the last year, right, on an annualized basis, on the last year's volatility, well, then this is at 11% below that, right? It's at an 11% discount to that historical average. So that's one of the things that this report is looking at. Okay, so you could change this report. So what else why else this filtered out was the other condition was that not only was the option seemed undervalued relative in those terms, right? So based on those terms, it looks undervalued, what we just discussed, but also this is a low market cap stock. So why do we do low market cap instead of high market cap? Well, the low market cap stock, right, because it's low market cap, may have less float and so forth, those can also be more explosive in volatility, right? So there's a potential, on top of everything else, that just low market cap stocks can have a potentially much higher volatility than a higher, because usually you have, it's less widely owned, but less covered, less liquidity and so forth. So if you're a person looking to, buy volatility potentially in options that are undervalued for, because you wanted some Vega exposure, or you wanted to see, trade the gamma, or, because there are different types of players, right? There are some players that like to trade Vega and gamma and the scalp the realized volatility versus implied volatility. So this would be a kind of report as a starting point to point out where there are places where that's happening to look at. So we see that there are trades now that are happening, and trading at discount to its realized volatility from the prior year. Okay, so that's what this is pointing out. And why we're using the trades is that, well, we know it's already trading, right? We already know that these are happening. There's trading going on in AOI. You could see that. So from the perspective of these trade prints, it's also establishing, right, at every point where there are buyers and sellers that are meeting, and that's helping us with our price discovery, right? So it's a little bit different than if you just went into an option that so far there are no trades, the markets are wide, and price discovery is much harder. Here we already see that there are trades going on here, right? I could just eyeball AOI. So that's also helping us with the price discovery and what markets are signaling. And maybe, if they're selling aggressively, it might be even worth waiting. You'd want to go and investigate that further. But it's already pointing out a couple things there. And again, that's certain types of traders are looking for different types of opportunities, right? So this is for that type of a trade, looking for those types of potential trades. So that's one way. Here we have, and you could, we could change it over here. Undervalued calls and the stock is breaking up. So let's say you're looking, for a potential, momentum stock that's looking like it's moving higher, right? Like so far, like the momentum in this stock is moving higher, and you think maybe that the market might be moving higher, and you want to use that momentum, but you don't want to go buy stock. You don't want to go take on, stock positions or whatever. And you're just looking to ride it through purchasing calls, right? So if that's what you're looking for, that type of trade, right? So this one, what this is looking at is saying, okay, first of all, we're looking that something's trading. So we know that they're that the price discovery, right? That there's trades, there are people on both sides, and we could then evaluate where these fair value implied volatilities are trading at. And then we're going to compare that and say, okay, again, are these implied vols, right? Because if I'm looking at the implied vols and looking at it from that perspective, how do they compare to the realized volatility? And here we have the comparison. So you could see at the discount to the realized vol. So the implied vol discount to the historical 1-year vol. And that's a quick reference to say, okay, this is at a 25% discount, 27, 25. So we filtered those out. And the other thing, what this is looking for is that the stock itself, okay, the underlying stock is displaying a like a behavior that's moving outside its expected range to the upside, right? So it's breaking up because if we calculate the volatilities and so forth, we could get a resistance band, right? So we could take a look at, it should be trading in this resistance band based on this volatility that the stock is at, where, a standard deviation up and down. But here we could see here on the chart. So this is looking at its day VWAP, that yellow line. And those green are the resistance bands, right? That we would expect it to trade within, but you see it's breaking out to the upside. So the indication there is that, there's not the resistance is weaker at that point, right? So maybe it's going to move higher to the next levels, right? We don't know where the next resistance is, but it's definitely, displayed behavior that it's breaking above the expected resistance, where it's expected to bounce around. So that's what this is looking at, is saying, okay, we see that there are calls trading, right? So there we do have people on both sides, but there are calls trading there. We could see where the fair value of that trade was, where the implied vol is, gives us a reference point. We could compare that to their realized vol, and this stock, if we're looking just for like a momentum, already is displaying that it broke out of that expected range already today, right? So it's done. It's already doing that on the day. So that's how you go. Could read more about it, and that's how these, filters are working, which you could basically recreate from the block trade screener itself. So that's that ID dashboard was kind of an attempt to say, well, I created these filters from here. Like I chose the implied volatility. Let me see here. There's the implied vol. I chose that the trade's implied volatility is below, let's say here it's below 20% below the historical vol, right? And I think that I chose here, let me see here. I believe technical indicator, I chose it's above its 1-day resistance, right? So you could see here, what I'm doing is looking for these types of trades by using this screener, right? And then if you save it, like if you save that and it's in there, now you could screen out those particular types of situations, those conditions and scenarios. So the idea dashboard was basically saying, okay, well, this is what, if I chose these filters, right? That means I did it because I'm looking for some kind of a condition scenario, because this is the type of trade that I'm looking for. This is the type of trader I am. This is my outlook. This is the type of things I'm looking for. And that's kind of like the idea there, right? That you could create these ideas using these filters, right? Save it, and then it will filter out those types of trades for you. Okay. So that was the idea dashboard, an attempt to kind of show how you could filter for this narrative or situation.
Perfect, D. That was great. We had no other questions pop up.
Okay.
It's right against the open. Let me just give one more check. We do run a little delay.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing popped up. Great job, my friend.
Okay. Yeah. And just one quick note, I did publish yesterday, maybe under the original articles, on Intel option order flow. So this is my
I know can you go slow how you got through those to that page where there's the articles?
Yeah. So under news, original articles, those are our blogs.
All right.
It pops up here, and this one on Intel. And I tried to write up an explanation kind of about the option order flow sentiment. What questions you're trying to answer using it. So if people read this and give me some feedback on if it clarifies things, makes things more confusing, because the idea is explaining the tool where the tool are usually trying to answer some questions that you may have. And so I posed like, well, what type of questions can this tool answer, right? And then I went into the explanation of these metrics, and hopefully that makes it easier to use these tools. So trying different things. If you guys go read to give some feedback, that would be great. That will help me with going forward, how to create these blogs that explain some of these tools better.
That's great, D. And bring any feedback on Monday in the form of questions, if you would. That'd be awesome. Yep. Not that it's a homework assignment or anything, but this is always this is helpful for us and will be helpful for you. So great stuff, D. Thank you so much.
Yep. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Stay safe out there. Have a great weekend, and hope to see you guys on Monday.